evening and welcome to this extraordinary meeting. Please be seated. Good evening and thank you for being here. So, to ensure that the meeting is held in a safe manner for all the attendees, we have had to change the venue to comply with health and safety requirements. And as a consequence, tonight's meeting is not being webcast, but it is recorded. So it's recorded. Thank you for recording tomorrow. I would also like to take this opportunity to formally welcome Matt Keller, Legal Commissioner, Margaret Lee, Finance Commissioner, and Gavin Jones, Assistant Commissioner to the Council. And through the matter, Margaret and Margaret Lee and Gavin Jones, unfortunately not here today, but again formally welcome. The Commissioners have a wealth of experience and knowledge which will assist in the Council's recovery and renewal plan and putting the Council on a sustainable footing. Please could I remind all councillors and attendees to wear their masks throughout the meeting except when speaking. And members are also reminded that the usual procedure rules apply at this meeting and the rules are equally to all members. So any apologies for the absence?
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillors Baker, Gale, Strutter, Wright, Hussain, Roger Davies, Gemma Davies.
Any other apologies? Thank you for that. And do any members wish to declare any disclosable, pecuniary or other interests in any items before this Council this evening? No? So we go on to agenda item 2, page 1 of the agenda. Proposed move to hold council elections and request to the Local Government Boundary Commission for England for a review of the award of the categories. Councillor Swindlehurst to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure most members know the background to this. Council had agreed in a cross-party way that we would consult on the move to all-out elections way back last summer. The 114 slightly delayed the consultation, but it ended up being issued in a booklet sent to every house from November through with the consultation running from November to January. We were then sort of caught up by events where when Jim Taylor published the external review into Slough's governance arrangements, one of the recommendations in that was that, as with most authorities that have intervention, the government asks that they move to all-out elections as part of their response to that, and Jim Taylor made that recommendation in his review. That was then referred to in a letter sent to myself and the Executive Board in terms of how we began responding to all the various recommendations coming out of that review. And I wrote in reply saying that we'd already triggered the consultation and would move a report implementing the sort of steer from Jim Taylor as soon as we'd concluded the consultation and seen its results. So the working party that was looking at our parliamentary boundary response and the election cycle and ward boundaries met last week and tabled or agreed to recommendations A, B and C, which are all specifically about the move to all-out elections, and which has a long back history but is beefed up by the Jim Taylor report. They were silent on recommendation D, which is more a housekeeping item, which is obviously about the move to request from the government that we postpone the third elections due in May so that we can concentrate on preparing for the all-out, because members would only serve a 10 or 11 month term until the next elections were called effectively for the following May. Most authorities where they have moved to all-out elections, there's increasingly a pattern of cancelling the last year before's election in order to enable that. So we will make that request to government. It's obviously entirely in government's hands as to whether it wishes to grant that request, but the working party agreed that we'd be silent on that, but we are also, in a cross-party way, endorsing recommendations A to C, because that cross-party working group has been meeting for the best part of a year on and off. So that, Mr Mayor, is the back history to where we are. As I say, the recommendations are set out on page 1. They speak for themselves. They are simply to enact the proposal to move to all-out elections, with the first election for those full council 4-year terms to be in May 2023. And I therefore move the proposal and the recommendations to the council.
Thank you for that. Is that seconded? Councillor Martin?
I second the Mayor, and reserve my right.
So would any member wish to speak on this item, please indicate now. We've got about 20 minutes on this item. If anyone wants to speak. Anybody? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Verma. The microphone doesn't seem to be working.
You can hear me.
It is now. On behalf of the Conservative Group, I'd like to say that we warmly welcome the recommendations A, B and C for an all-out election and for the Boundary Commission to do the necessary to look at that, including assessment of the right size of the council and its boundaries. We would very much look forward to the opportunity that gives the whole electorate of Slough to vote on the future direction of the council, but more particularly on who will be running the council, given the disastrous financial situation that the council is in at the moment. That seems to be only right and proper, with us being a council that has the largest deficit in the country, borrowing out of control, and insufficient reserves. So we would like a named vote, Mr Mayor, and we would also like, of course, a separate vote on the proposal D for a postponement of elections, which is not something that my group supports. But we will hopefully have an opportunity to debate item D later.
Anybody else wish to speak on the item? Councillor Bain?
I just want to double check, we'll be debating that later.
Well, you've got an option to speak now, and that's what my recommendation would be: speak on the whole agenda item now. And debate this.
Okay, so it's item D.
Yeah.
Council elections. So we're being asked to agree on the election for 2022 to be cancelled because of the potential of all out 2023. At a time in which council is intensely passionate, this could be the right thing to do. This is one way to look at it, and maybe the way the majority of council look at it. But we are supposedly here because we have residents at the forefront of our minds and our hearts. And we're supposedly think of their well-being in every step we take. If that is the case, we would then not be cancelling the upcoming elections and taking away the taxpayers and those who can stand to serve yet another meeting. Since April financial crisis, residents have had to pay closure to the centres they rely on. There have been cuts to services that are a lifeline to them, from closing centres or cutting back the hedges. The cuts are never ending. I speak to residents about issues in the ward, issues that really matter to them, and the ward often says, I'm sorry, the council is not in a position to even put up a basic street lamp. Soon, I will be saying to them, I know you can afford it, and the service is that we are providing as a council are next to nothing. However, you still have to pay a huge increase on your council tax. And by the way, despite all of this, you do not have the opportunity to go in the next election. In my mind, this is effectively being the gathering of our residents, as this is something I'm not prepared to do. It is a shame that the all-outs are not in 2022. It should not be this round of councillors who face the 22 vote. It should be every councillor in this room, and those who have their hands up and those who don't. Thank you.
there anybody else wish to speak? Councillor
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we've been asking for whole council elections for a long time. And yes, of course, as Councillor Smith also mentioned, we welcome to have the whole council elections starting from May 2023 if everything goes well. We could have saved a huge amount of taxpayers' money if it's done earlier. As we all know, a standalone election by charts was approximately 187,000 pounds. But we have concerns about postponing May 22 elections, as mentioned in recommendation D. We didn't even mention this in the consultation pack that we have sent to the residents. We could have asked a question during the consultation about the whole council elections if residents also wanted to postpone May 2022 elections to May 2023, but we didn't give that option. We didn't even ask the residents. Now we are taking the decision and we are trying to postpone. Probably Labour councillors do not want to face the electorate in May 2022. That's why they are trying to take some time and move into the May 2023. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Councillor Smith, you want to come back on Steve, so you've got
Mr. Mayor, can I just have some clarity? Are we also debating item D at this point?
the entire report will take, so hence I'll come back to you.
It's very difficult to hear.
Yes, the agenda item, the whole report we're debating. So the A to D, the items A to D are just for the voting, so we're debating the whole report.
Sorry, I'm still struggling to hear. Do you want me to... A to D.
That's one, yeah. So we're debating the whole report, but we'll be voting individually. But you can discuss the item D now. I'll give you extra time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that clarity. So, members and Mr. Mayor, I would like to expand upon what you said concerning the Assembly Group not supporting the postponement for the 2022 elections. Well, the reason for that is that it's not part of the ministerial direction. We have had elections for thirds the year before, all-out elections before. Most of the preparation work for this election in 2022 has already been done. It's only weeks away from the notice of election being given. Contracts have been placed, those contracts will have to be honoured. To my mind, this is about whether or not members are prepared to stand up and defend what has gone on in this council in front of the electorate or not, or allow others to come forward and campaign on what has happened, the financial crisis that has engulfed us. I do not support running away from elections, and that is what part D of this motional report is about. I think the people of Slough deserve the opportunity to be able to vote. Our deficit this year is an unprecedented one in the country. We will be forced, no doubt, to increase the council tax by a rate which is above the government cap, simply because we cannot cover a legal budget, all of the statutory obligations that the council has, the debt repayments, and the requirement to replenish reserves which aren't there without the council tax going up. Normally that would require a referendum, and the people will not have that opportunity because of the forced measure of just needing, the council needing to sign off a balanced budget. So let the people have an election this year, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No one is running away from the elections. It's just a sensible thought of saving the cost for the residents. This 1/3 of election this year will not make any difference to the way the council is controlled. Conservative, they will not be able to sort of take over the council with 1/3. They have a full opportunity to shine in 2023, and we sort of ask them to sort of take up a challenge in 2023 and face everybody will be facing to the council. So we are only here looking after the interest of the residents, and let's not politicize this agenda item. But let's not politicize this sort of issue. Think sensibly that 180,000 cost to the residents. We can spend that money on some of the services. So I sort of challenge them that let's face in 2023, and you have a good opportunity to shine.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not the first time that I've not been able to see the logic of the Conservative Group's argument in this, not this chamber, but the council chamber in the past. I can fully understand people being in favour of moving to a 4-yearly election cycle for their own health. We're looking at it because it's seen by the direction that is being imposed upon us as one of the things which will lead to greater stability, and we can argue that point. But if you accept that you want to move to 4-year elections, I don't understand why you want to carry on with a redundant 1/3 election, especially when, as it says in the report, that's going to cost us £187,000, as Councillor Smith has said, for what is a financially challenged council, for us just simply to give the Conservative group a chance to go out and talk about it. Because that's what we're talking about, as the councillor said previously. Irrespective of if we did hold an election for 1 year, the result of those elections would have no impact on the control of this council. If this council was hung by a few seats and it might actually change control as a result of the election, I wouldn't favour council election, because there would be absolute necessity to give the public a chance. But giving people the chance to say something which is going to have no actual impact, because we're going to ask them the same question again 12 months later, for the cost of £187,000 of their money, seems rather illogical to me, Mr. Mayor. And as Councillor Nevada said about people being frightened of elections, well, Councillor, I've stood in 3 all-out elections in this town and 5 individual standalone elections. I'm certainly not frightened of election. I love standing for election, but I also prefer the 3rd system. But I recognise that it's the right time to move to the all-out system. And if we do that, we need to make the other changes that are necessary as well, and not indulge in individual vanities. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Councillor Anderson has referred to the report saying the cost of the election would be saved, but that isn't what the report says. The report says...
Sorry, what's the point of order? That's not a point of order.
It's an incorrect fact that has been put.
But that's not a point of order.
Sit down. Anybody else? I think Councillor Sapporo. Councillor Sapporo. And be brief, please. We haven't got much time.
What's the idea of holding election this year, then we get next year? So same councillors standing this year and again next year. The election panel system, 1/3 every year. We are doing for we used to have this system in the past, but since we got it, it's down to 1/3. 1/3 was the criteria we had was that we had to go to elected voters every year, and they never asked us to do few things, and then again next year they also had to done this, so we are voting. But also having license to change all of the election of the year. Now we are proposing. Consultations are held worldwide, and 60% one of my in favor of all of this. This was all to help deliver the political stability from costs and standing in way of progress. We can have this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the. This is not the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of the beginning of the new era. We have now put the ring for election. This is we have put down the gauntlet, you can see, in the ring. And all councillors have decided for this. So this will be where to go. All of 2023. This is our proposal, and I'm asking all my colleagues to.
Thank you, thank you. Councillor
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate on this motion that at least we say maybe 180,000 pounds that we have having actually this year. And obviously it wouldn't make no difference even the 14 councils, the labour laws, all of them, they still wouldn't make no difference. Still the labour will gain majority. But on the other hand, we are trying to help the other side of the table, that at least they will be able to find 42 candidates till that time. Thank you.
I'll keep it very brief. I would draw everybody's attention to C. Basically, there is going to be an electoral review of the wards. That cannot take place by May 2022. It needs to be May 2023. As such, we need to support the motion to delay the elections until May 2022, and then we can have a nice all-out election and see what the public think. Thank you. And also, one last word, it will also coincide with the parish council elections in 2023, which will save us a bit of money as well. By the way, I must admit, I'm a parish council.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Can I ask Councillor Marshall to sum up all? Councillor Kelly.
Our Treasury management strategy is a shining example of good governance. I'll repeat that for anybody who didn't hear it clearly.